In Nigerian terms, like play. It's 24 days to go to Nigeria's National Assembly and presidential elections. And as mentioned, there is a negative narrative that has been shared and is still subtly being used. First, it was that the presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, during an interactive session with the Arewa Joint Committee in Kaduna, who came under fire following his advice to Northerners that they should vote for him in the 2023 elections because he hails from the northern region and not, and of course, not vote for an Igbo man instead. This was followed by other parties' candidates such as Bola Ahmed Tinubu of the APC, who said in a rally in Enugu State, southeastern Nigeria, he said, in quote, Igbo people will continue to be marginalized in Nigeria and, of course, are given soaked sliced bread until they support his presidential ambition. The list goes on and on. But it's not just the presidential candidates that, of course, take advantage of religion and tribalism and some of all of that. We even get to see videos every now and then of leaders in different sectors, church leaders, religious leaders, and even people who, call themselves scholars that have some level of following, make statements like, don't vote for an infidel. We've seen a lot of that happen in Nigeria's electoral process. But before we proceed, let's look at what the electoral law in Nigeria says. And of course, this is with regard to tribal sentiments on the electoral law. Section 97 of the Electoral Act states that a candidate, person or association that engages in campaigning or broadcasting based on religious, tribal, or sectional reasons to promote or oppose a particular political party in the election of a particular candidate commits an offense under this act and is liable on conviction to a maximum fine of 1 million naira or imprisonment for a term of 12 months or both. Of course, in the case of a political party, to a maximum of 10 million naira. Now, joining us on Election Countdown Nigeria is, of course, a lecturer, researcher, and a public affairs analyst. Thank you so much for your time, and thanks for joining us. Good morning to you, sir.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure. I've been here.
Now, it's not the first time we're having conversations concerning religion and tribe, and its influence in Nigeria's elections. Why would you say it's still a common factor and a strong factor at that with regards to Nigeria's electoral process?
Because we do not have a constitution that actually speaks to the concerns of the division strongly. And the Constitution is also very funny when it comes to what it addresses. You refer to the Electoral Act. That section is as lame as you have in Section 10 of the Constitution, where we learned that there shall not be a state-sponsored religion. It's about the shortest portion of the country's Constitution. And I need to tell you, why do we have Sharia law if the Constitution says there will not be and there shall not be a state-sponsored religion? Nigeria is a secular country. Yes. So you have to ask yourself why we have Section 10, but people are choosing Sharia over the secularity of the country. You also have to ask yourself why we have Arabic on Naira. The country was colonized by Britain. We do our dealings more also with France. Arabic is the language of a particular religion in this country. Why do we have also the emblem of the Nigerian army with Arabic? Even if people say it is a Ajami, it is also not English, the language of education in this country. It is, of course, not also French, which is the nation's second official language. So some people already are communicating through signs and symbols that this country belongs in a certain place. So we will continue to have people lean in the direction where they vote according to what tribe are you from, what ethnic configuration or ethnic demography you belong to. And let me also say this. A country that also makes it easy for somebody, for instance, to become the president and you will hold this job, it's another thing. I doubt if you've ever had less than 4 or 5 years of university education to stand where you are today. But you can only have a secondary school education and you have the opportunity to become the president of the country. So you find out that there is a structure, there is a system or a process that actually enables people who, quite frankly, are not fit to hold position, that are regarded as exalted in the country, yes, and they just leave every other thing. So you would have those kind of persons who are the framers of the disputed constitution begin to have things go the way it is going. I served in the North, and at some period in the election, you hear them doing certain broadcasts or certain things that don't vote for, you said don't vote for an infidel.
Oh yeah, I saw that message
yeah,
a week ago.
In fact, there is a particular saying among some people that are of another religion that if you're to compare the worst of yourself, you compare the worst of yourself with somebody else in your own religion. That is not in Christianity anyway. I'm saying here that when certain teachings go that way, you'd most definitely find people want to go in the direction that we're talking about, and that is part of the albatross we have as a country. So when we talk about ethnicity, you'd also have to look at it. Who is the rallying point in this country? What leader will stand and speak to the people and they see a national figure? And these things don't come cheap, because the evolution of that leadership that represents the national enthusiasm of the people takes a lot of work.
Yes.
And we perhaps have not paid attention to carefully building that person or people, because you should not have, in a multi-religious and ethnic nation as ours, one person that cut that cloth. You should have several people, such that after one person perhaps leaves the stage, another person seamlessly comes on board. So it's not possible.
Okay, so we're going to get back to this, but I also want to ask, I'll take the conversation away from the leadership perspective now, the people who are vying for political position, and look at the people themselves.
Yes,
why is it so easy for the people to be swayed by religion and by tribe? Because you see a lot of comments on social media,
that's true.
And you can tell. But we'll get back. We'll get into that when we come back. Let's take a short break. When we come back, Election Countdown continues.
News Central TV, Africa's #1 storyteller, has come with the best of both worlds. With a combination of news app and live TV, we ensure that you keep track of the latest headlines, breaking news, and in-depth analysis from professional journalists from around the continent. Download the News Central TV app on Android and iOS and get started today. Don't forget to follow us on News Central's social media platforms. News Central, Africa First.
Welcome back to Election Countdown. We're still speaking this morning with Adeniyi Kunnu, who's a lecturer, researcher, and public policy analyst. Before we continue our discussion, Olufemi Adefisoye, of course, who is a reporter, hit the streets to find out if Nigerians will vote for their choice candidate based on tribal preferences. And of course, this is what they had to say.
I don't do tribalism, I don't do such. The thing is, like our president said, vote who your conscience goes for.
I'm not voting based on tribe, but I'm voting based off of what I know and the information that I have collected.
I believe the stage that we are in Nigeria, one needs to look beyond the ethnic groups and tribes or religious biasness when it comes to voting.
This election is not going to be tribalistic. We want the best for our nation and for our country. We are not going to vote about tribe, wherever you come from. No, we want the best for Nigeria.
I've never been a tribalistic person. I'm one of these school of thoughts that believes that the best candidates should emerge even before now.
I don't vote based on tribe. I base on the candidate I know is able to make sure they give us a quality leadership that we want. Because if we get it wrong in leadership, every other thing will have issue.
As in Nigeria, I don't think trying to say, okay, because I'm a Christian or a Muslim or I'm from this part of Nigeria, to influence my choice of vote. It's personal. I choose whom I want to vote for, whom I like.
Because what we are facing in this country, we don't need tribalism, and we don't even need any religion at all. We need common sense to tell us what we need and what we are facing in this our nation.
Because even the Bible says, when the righteous is on the throne, people rejoice. When the wicked one is on the throne, people grumble. And our prayer for this country, for the person we are going to vote for, we want him to hold this country and do what is right.
Me, my own voting that anybody that is going to win, they should hold the country well. Yes, it's my own be that.
When you are talking about the progress of a nation and the perspective of a nation, you have to look at the the potentials of the candidate that are available, not about a religion. Religion has no role to play in it, because when you bring in religion, that means even when the candidate is the wrong choice, you have to put it there.
Definitely, if you are in Nigeria, you should know that religion has nothing to do with the next coming election, because we have all seen how the economy has been battered, and for us to redeem that economy back, so religion should not be the key thing.
All these people carry religion for head. Religion no dey carry us go anywhere. Vote the right person, finish. So all that's what they do. Na my religion person, na my I be Muslim, I be Christian. Now then they spoil this country. All of us now one. Now the same God we dey serve.
Well, very interesting report there. But of course, if we have also seen, there's other video clips that we've seen, across social media where people say, "I will vote for my brother." I will vote for my sister. So is this the reality of Nigerians? What you've just seen, and then, like I mentioned earlier, let's talk about, aside the political leadership, Nigerians themselves. Yes, why are they so easily swayed with voting for the person that they call their brother?
Let's understand that we are a nation of several ethnic groups, and as I said at the beginning, we need a unifying force for people to actually move away from that. When President Goodluck Jonathan was in power, the people of the South Side felt this man happens to be for us, and we should give him all the support. And for the first time in the Fourth Republic, a region of this country, the South, is giving almost absolute support. Yes. We should also go to 2019. Those who voted from the Southeast for the president that is still on the saddle were about 5% in terms of the percentile. It tells you, therefore, that certain persons do not feel that their hopes and aspirations can be achieved or fulfilled with certain candidates. And do not forget that we are not like the West, where some people have been conservatives for the past 150 years, and their children have also stuck with them. In fact, people have had to be with the conservatives or the Republican Party, for instance, and spoke in favor of the Democratic Party, yet they remain with their party. Because certain things with regard to ideologies resonate with them. They don't change where they belong, because they believe that from a scale of 1 to 10, 8, 9 over 10 resonates with them in the Republican Party. So they say that. You have to look at the process of our acculturation, which is very fundamental to this discussion. We're talking about, let me say, for instance, 50% of Nigerians, maybe 50% male, 40-something, or 53% male, 40-something% female are literate people in the country. Overall, maybe you have about 60-70% people who are literate in the country. Now, you also have a subcategorization of people with regard to the nature of their literacy. Yeah. Some people do not speak English. They are literate in maybe Pidgin, literate in maybe Arabic or Ajami, as I said earlier. Some people only speak Fulfulde. Yes. Yet they can read that language. So what is the level of sensitization and information that gets to them, so that they're able to see a national picture of representation that would make them not vote according to their ethnic leanings, which is very key. So we need to do a lot of work, and that is why the business of political leadership has a lot on the leader's shoulders. For every citizen of the country to come to a point where he or she is able to begin to see beyond that ethnic leaning, which cannot be taken away anyway. There has to be something you do that will make the person see, my destiny can be fulfilled outside of this. Now, this is a country where they wanted to hold the beauty pageants, and because they mentioned the name of a leader, the founder of the religion, everybody got irate and started killing. I'm saying here that when you have people who perhaps because of their action, level of exposure, level of civility, are not able to countenance certain things and understand that there are dimensions between, this is your faith. Yes, it is. You don't take your faith to rub on the next man, or you do not choke the next man because you feel your faith is superior. You need to take people through a process of acculturation for them to understand the humanity in people. So education, acculturation, social configuration.
Yes, Mr. Kunnu, I would also mention here that I understand the perspective of poor education, yes, limited exposure, as to how a better leadership would improve your lives, regardless of where the person is from. But we've also seen people who have PhDs, people who are, seemingly, well educated.
Yes,
they have gone to some of the best universities, still spew bigotry, in the interest of their preferred candidates.
Now, what education does to you or me may not be the same thing that education has done to the next man. So you earn the certificate. What is the process of getting it? Or have you allowed such interface that has actually given you a brand new personality and perspective? That is another thing. Some people go to university because they believe it's going to help them deal with their economic problems. Some go to university first because they feel the knowledge transforms them and also enables them to fit in society. Some people go to university because they feel they need the knowledge to understand what happens in their world.
Some just get certification.
So if you look at the reasons, it differs. So people who spew ethnic bigotry do not quite understand, especially those that actually have attained to that level of education, have not allowed the proper assimilation of whatever discipline they found themselves, and have not been able to look at comparatives. This, for instance, is a country where it's been said by the former Emir of Kano, Sanusi Lamido Sanusi, that the Muslim North, as it were, happens to be the poorest region if you did a comparative analysis of Muslim regions of the world and that of the North. And he said that because many of us people do not understand. In fact, there was a time he spoke against building, I think it was in Jigawa, mosque in every local government, but nobody's talking about building schools where people could be educated so that they can understand. So it all boils down to understanding the problematics of what you're taking up. Let me tell you this. When this administration came to the saddle, one of the challenges that is spewed for the first 4 years was that the PDP should be blamed. This is the next 4 years, and we have certain harrowing experiences. That means if you did 4 years blaming the previous administration, let's agree that the damage might have been collateral. Yeah. The second 4 years that gives you room, in the course of understanding the problems, you start marking the solutions so that you can solve people's problems. But it appears as if we're still struggling with that. So I think very strongly here that going into the next election, we may not overcome that tribal, ethnic, and religious sentiment and the voting pattern. And we have to give it a 10-year, 15-year mark for whoever becomes president to begin to look at why do we have so much sentiment. So for instance, we're talking about an army of beggars in the north. We're talking about the Alhaji school in the north. Nigeria is not like Indonesia that has concentrated more Muslims in one place. Do we hear of our Alhaji schools there? And if people want to say it's a problem,
not even in Saudi Arabia.
I'm simply saying that some excuses given.
Yes.
Why I deliberately went to Indonesia is because of the population in one place. So if major Muslim countries, for instance, look at the South, for instance, it is going to be difficult, for instance, if you look at the analytics we've had, the people, for instance, in Lagos do not see their hopes and dreams. Essentially, from the things I've read on social media, from my interaction, they've not seen here that their dreams or goals could be achieved through a particular candidate. So they've switched based on that. So the one they believe understand the basics of their challenges. Some other persons have also moved away to say, well, the two big guns are not there. In fact, I heard somebody said their dreams could be fulfilled if they supported a PDP, for instance, because it actually traverses all regions. So you see that it's still going to be difficult. So what do? We look at the reasons for this. If, for instance, the daily needs of people are fulfilled by somebody who occupies the #1 seat, it will be difficult for the person to say, a Yoruba man can't help me fulfill my dreams, because even if an Ijaw man happens to be there, you see that you're deliberate. So these things are very key.
And of course, I'm going to, maybe also mention the example you gave from the Emir of Kano. And, you may also realize that the campaign speeches are different when certain persons are in the north compared to when they're in the southern part of
Okay, you have to tell me one reason why Atiku took down a tweet.
Exactly.
When somebody was killed.
So there's still a really strong grip.
Excuse me, the level of exposure we have in different parts of this country is not the same. And because we also have actually allowed ourselves over time not to enable coalescence. Let me say this. Everything they say starts and ends with leadership. When we came together as a country, we did that when there's naivety, where people could do things and get away with it. We live in an age where people are very sentimental about things that happen. They're sensitive to issues, where if there's a lacuna somewhere, they're quick to point out and say, If you did this, why is this happening? And if it's a recurrent decimal, then it becomes a problem regarding maybe certain regions of the country getting certain positions more than other regions of the country. That alone causes a sediment of disaffection for the person who is not from your tribe, if the person is doing that. And it makes you run to where you believe there is safety. Even if the person that you are standing with may not eventually give you that leadership, you feel safe with your own because you believe no matter what, we'll still have home to go to and resolve these issues. So these things are very fundamental in this discussion, and I guess we have to look at it.
Okay, now I want to ask, something else now. We would always say, or Nigerians will always say the politically correct things, which are, I'm not going to vote based on tribe or religion, we want competence and all of that. But there's still a, very strong rejection of the Muslim ticket of the APC, for example.
Yeah.
So why is that?
Well, let's understand that this country has a majority of Muslims and Christians. There are other religions, and I don't want people to think that those up north are just Muslims. There are people who are traditional religion people. That's their affiliation. And we believe that it is more or less like a convention or a norm where over time we try to balance it. The 11+ million votes that Atiku got in the 2019 elections were mainly from the south. The vote that President Muhammadu Buhari got in the main were actually, of course, from the north. And you'll understand that except for Adamawa, I think the president clinched every other area. Kunnu, Jigawa, where block votes came from, majority Muslim states. He took that. It is simply because they believe this is our leader, is one of us. Atiku obviously seen as that, but if you check, most of the votes he got were gotten from the south because they believe, okay, somebody that reflects our aspirations happens to be with him in the person of Peter B, and that's when the way he did. I'm simply saying here, and very important, that when you have these dimensions, as I've said, it is the fact that people believe you've not given accommodation to what they expect of you. The Muslim ticket may not mean that they want to, mean that they want to Islamize the country. Because don't forget, that was part of the conversation. It may not even mean that anybody has any ill intention. It could only mean that as far as I'm concerned, he believes, okay, if I must get this vote, I must get it. Okay, Lagos is good for me and all that. So that perhaps might be the motivation.
But that is the motivation for the political party and for the political aspirants.
Yes, please.
I'm asking, so if Nigerians would say, like from the, report from the streets that we saw, if Nigerians would say, I am not voting based on tribe or religion, everyone seems to be mouthing off the same narrative, then why do they have a problem with Muslim ticket?
The reality is, don't forget that when the Shettima Bola Tinubu duo came on board, that was perhaps before you had the reports on the street where people talk about it. I believe they feel that certain things just need to change as far as this country is concerned. The reaction we see is because many people, don't forget that there were conversations, very vehement vituperations before the emergence. And the man who eventually had a pair, being Muslim, said, this is what I've done, even when everybody felt you had options that you would have decided from. And I think that anybody who makes a decision has to live to bear the brunt of the decision.
Yes.
The situation here means that people will go to the polls, and indeed, if they are not happy about it, then let their vote reflect their dislike. Because if we're talking about people, at times when I hear reports, you only need to take the camera away for someone else to make certain decisions that will shock you.
Yes.
And that is what I'm saying. So when we talk about this kind of situation we find ourselves, talk is cheap, please. Talk is very cheap. It only takes a snap of the finger. It only takes some notes. It only takes some pecks for people to start speaking from different sides of their mouths.
Very true.
But I think that for them to have said that, it is because they believe the country can be better, that it's got more potential to do more, that perhaps there are lots of people who can add value than just thinking that it's about certain religion. And as I said, the Constitution and many symbols of this country have also not supported that secularity that this country itself should reflect. And that also must be given cognizance in this conversation, where people who find themselves in that office are able to say, we're taking this out, we're taking this out, let's reflect the nationality of secularity that we claim to have.
Totally agree. But of course, these are the realities of the election season in Nigeria. These are the realities of the leadership recruitment process in Nigeria, and it goes across all levels, the federal, state, and the local government levels. If you go to certain states in Nigeria, the person who's taken over from this current local government chairman needs to come from this local government or needs to come from this community. If not, they are not supporting, and so it plays a huge role. It's but at the same time, one point that should be made is, as much as people clamor for inclusion based on religion or based on tribe, it should not be felt that there are no qualified persons from each tribe. And so I believe that Nigerians, while they make these arguments about, we need someone who's Christian, we need someone who's not Fulani, we need someone who's from the Southeast, every single part of the country has qualified enough people to fill in those positions. Okay. And so those thoughts should somehow, some way be accommodated in the conversation. But now, as always, we share with you one candidate every episode of Election Countdown, and today we're looking at Adeniyi Sunday Oluwafemi, because the party name and, of course, his party logo we'll be sharing with you right on your screen. The party logo, of course, is a boot, and it is the Boot Party. It's represented by a green boot. He's a 58-year-old man. Adeniyi Sunday Oluwafemi is a technology expert and has degrees in mathematics, statistics, as well as diplomas in project management and amongst other professional qualifications. He's the national chairman of the party and also the presidential candidate because of our Tomorrow Boot Party. It was registered by the Independent National Electoral Commission in 2019. In his manifesto, he said that if he becomes president, he would create a technology hub where youth's energy and resilience will be used to bring more foreign reserves to the country, and it is achievable within a 4-year tenure of government. Energy-wise, he said his government will go through renewable energy, and it will be very doable. Nigeria is one of the best places you can harvest solar energy, and he said he is going to make sure that most homes are powered by solar energy, and it will be achieved in less than a year. Now, speaking on insecurity in the country, also stated that there is need to address the problem of insecurity and not its symptoms, arguing that stakeholders mostly talked about the latter, and his approach to solving insecurity will be to unbundle Nigeria's policing into at least 3-tier levels: community, state, and federal policing. Very interesting there. And let's see if he, of course, travels far in the elections, of course.
Why this smile really is what I don't understand.
It's interesting mostly because I've seen there's a lot of political parties, a lot of candidates that are running, and he is the national chairman of the party and also the presidential candidate of the party. Is interesting. And at the same time,
only 18 are in this one.
Yes.
You said something while the discussion was on about religion and all that. For instance, in the Philippines, if you're not Catholic, you'd likely never get to power. If you come to the US, it is Biden, obviously, who is Catholic, that is there. But the United States of America is a country that usually leans towards Protestantism. If you go to certain countries of the world, there are certain religions that you belong to that also gives you a real foothold.
Yeah.
In many Middle Eastern countries, expectedly, if you're a Muslim, you have to be a Sunni Muslim, oftentimes, for you to actually assume power.
Yes.
The Shia, except, of course, if you find yourself in a place like Iran, where it's a majority in terms of their religious leaning, you may never get power in other parts of the world. So, if you look at these things that I've referred to, it also speaks to the issue that people's spiritual connection happens to be a very big factor in the decision that they make when it comes to the person who rules them. Absolutely. And don't forget, the opiate of the people is religion. And when you take the opiate, the delirium it causes, the highness it makes you feel, and many other things that it makes you do, you can't take that away. So this thing is, sorry for the interjection, I just thought I should rub that in.
Absolutely. Yeah. Mr. Adeniyi Kunnu here, of course. Thanks very much for your time this morning. A quick reminder to everyone, please get your PVCs. Remind yourselves of what your party logos are. Of course, the candidate that you very likely will be voting for. Of course, remember to not sell your votes. Do not sell your future.